We are live. Mr. Scott Ellis, champion turkey caller. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing as well as I could be at this point in juncture in time.
Well, thank you for coming on the podcast. It's getting close to spring turkey season, and I'm amped up because we start here in Texas March 20th. And I was going to go out this morning to scout, and a front came in, and it's really windy, and it's supposed to rain, and it dropped like 20 degrees. So I know where they're going to be. I just, you know how it is. Just nice being out there in the mornings and hearing those birds gobble, and it's like, oh, yes, it's here.
Charges you up, doesn't it?
Yes, sir, it does.
Every year, year in, year out, it never fails to put me in a lot better place than state of mind as hearing an old bird go. It's just an amazing sound. Truly amazing.
You know what? As long as I interviewed a buddy, one of my first podcasts. He's a friend from back home in New York, and he's just like you, like turkey season. That's him. You talk turkey with him, he becomes a bird like you just gobbled. And I've been hunting longer than he has, and I can't do any of the calls with the mouth. But guys like you and him are just like and making all the sounds, and it's like, do you have a mouth call in, or is that no? That's your voice.
No, that's just an old method I learned. I used to could really gobble well my throat, but as time goes on and then your vocal cords get stretched and you get older, I used to could do a complete natural gobble by using my diaphragm and my vocal cords. That was just going tucka tucka tucka. That's just doing. That's all that is. I mean, but I actually gobble on a tube call more than anything now if I do need to gobble. But I can still. I can still yelp and still cluck and purr a little bit. Used to be really good vocally with a natural voice, not as good as I used to be, but thank God I got mouth calls and box calls and pot calls and tube calls and everything else.
So if you just happen to forget your calls, you don't have to worry about it. You can like make some sounds with your voice. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, I mean I've called in birds. Yeah, you can do it. It's just not as versatile. It's not as loud. But yeah, some people take a lot of pride in just natural voice calling. A very, very small circle of people, but they love calling natural voice. But I can get much more realism and much more volume is the other thing with using a mouth call than using natural voice.
So you're down in Florida? Is that where you're born and raised?
Right. Born and raised, unfortunately. I've always said the only good thing is that turkey season comes in so early down here. Outside of that, I'm not a huge fan of the state of Florida, to be honest with you. I was in the Army for 6 years. I'm sorry, David.
That's the way I'm originally from upstate New York, but I'm in Texas right now, and I feel the same way. I'd rather be. No, about Texas. I'd rather be in the mountains.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I hear you. I was in the Army 6 years right out of high school. Was in college, dropped college, and went in the Army for 6 years and had a ball and saw. I was in Fort Hood, Texas for a year. I was in South Korea for a year, and then I was at Fort Jackson for about 3.5 years. And then you mix in the training and everything, it's about 6 years worth. But everywhere I went after I left this state, I found 4 seasons, and I found more abundant hunting property and ability to hunt more freely and openly with public land and everything, and just meeting people. And of course, whenever I was in the Army, you can hunt all the installations you're on. So I quickly realized, man, this isn't really the state for me. And I don't know how I got off on this tangent, but I ended up coming home after the Army, unfortunately. And I'm not saying I completely regret it, but I miss a lot of aspects of being outside the state. So it's hard to hunt in this state. It's very hard to find places, and most of your public land stuff, if you really want to get good hunts, you got to get a special opportunity hunt or a quota draw hunt. All the draw stuff is going to be the better end to go. And I have turkey hunters ask me this literally right now 10 times a day. Where should I hunt public land? I'm like, dude, your best bet is to start putting in for quotas or special ops. And that gets you a more controlled hunt with a lot less people, because it's a zoo down here, man. I grew up hunting the green swamps and the 3 lakes and the places in Central Florida, and it's an absolute zoo, man. Makes you a better turkey hunter, I promise you that.
Oh yeah, more patience. I battled with guys before. It's funny when they come walking in, you're calling a bird, and they see your vehicle, and they know, and then they come walking in. It's like, are you serious? Now you're competing with not only trying to get that bird to come in, you're competing with another guy trying to get that bird away from you. And it's frustrating. I know what you're talking about. That's the way it is in New York sometimes. Some places you go.
Yeah, it's literally a whole podcast we could do on hunter etiquette and public land, because very few have it. I mean, whenever I was a kid, I always had manners. I was raised in the South. No offense to people like yourself raised in New York, but I mean, my parents were very strict and very courteous people, and my dad raised me up and we hunted public land. It's like you hear a guy yelping to a gobbler, and he's gobbling. Then I just turn and go to the list. Let's hit another spot. Let him give him his fair chance to try to kill that turkey. No, I'm going to walk up there and sit down and try to call the turkey away from him.
Yeah.
I mean, and I might be able to do that, but that's not the point. It's just giving that guy his fair shake at it. He found the bird. He's engaged the bird. But people they're just so rude. They're just so rude and unmannerful these days. Yeah.
Yeah, my dad instilled those same virtues in me. I've always been that way, and I don't kill things just to kill them, and respect people's boundaries. So, but it's just frustrating. But anyways, spring turkey season's coming up, and we were talking before the podcast. You've already had a successful hunt. You and your son went out this weekend. You can give some details, which I understand because you got a show coming up, but it must be pretty good because I know you started out young and you talk about your dad. So now you got your son involved in hunting. So that must feel pretty good that you guys could share that same bond. And he seems like he really enjoys it.
Oh, he loves it. He loves it. He shot his first turkey at 6, and I followed the same path with him in his hunting prowess, if you will. And that started with a BB gun and gun safety, a little Red Ryder BB gun, learning barrel in safe direction, identify your target, never point a gun at somebody, always check to see if it's loaded. Never take your safety off until you're ready to fire. I mean, just all the basic 101 gun safety I taught. Actually taught with little dart guns and stuff. When he was even smaller, started teaching him not to point weapons at people, and how to control the barrel of the weapon at all times. And then we started at about 5 with a 410, started squirrel hunting and shot a few dove. I think got on a dove field and helped him, shoot at dove. He didn't shoot a lot of them when he was that little. And then from there, he had a monopod. We went out and practiced religiously with 2.5-inch loads, little single shot 410. That was my dad's. The gun's probably 60, 70 years old, I guess now. And we went out on a monopod, and he taught to handle the firearm. I would carry it most of the time because it's kind of long, even though it's really light. And we had a monopod, and I taught him to control and to learn how to maneuver the monopod and control the barrel of the gun. And we practiced. I'd go out in the woods and set up 6 or 8 different turkey head targets, and we would go right down the line, and he would shoot everyone at different distances out to only about 25 yards with that particular 410 that he could kill a turkey. But from 10 to 25 yards or so, we would shoot those targets. And we did that numerous times until he got very proficient very quickly. And then I knew it was time to take him in the woods and take him turkey hunting. He killed his first one at 6 years old. And now we share that bond of getting in the woods. And after he shot his turkey yesterday, I was letting him drive the truck in the woods. And he's almost 15. He'll be driving this summer with his learner's permit. And he goes, Dad, I could drive around these woods all day. And I go, yeah, me too, son. Now, mind you, it was 87 degrees yesterday. So it wasn't exactly, we're running the air conditioner with the windows rolled down.
Oh, yeah.
But, I used to love to ride around the woods with my dad. Just be in the woods, period. Just being in the woods is so peaceful and tranquil. And it just puts your mind, it's therapeutic. It puts your mind in such a great place.
Oh, yeah.
But I was able to share that to him or pass that on to him. And he feels the same way about it. And that's awesome.
Yeah, being in the woods, that there you cannot be an early morning in the spring before the sunrise, and you start hearing those songbirds, and also hear that yelp of that hen or that gobble of that bird, and then just things start waking up, and it's priceless.
Being on a duck pond, in a duck hole, or just squirrel hunting, or any of it, any part of the woods waking up at any point in time is awesome. Absolutely,
yeah.
I agree. 100%.
It's funny you mentioned the 87 degrees yesterday because down here in Texas it'll start. By end of March, I'm hunting in shorts because I bow hunt for turkeys. So, and I try and be mobile as well. I have a blind, but same time it gets hot, and I'll be in shorts and a tank top hunting turkeys because it's so it'll be 90+ degrees, and you're just like, and I so I try to find shade because if you're sitting out there and that sun's hitting you, and you're like, oh man, but yeah, I know what you feel about that heat.
That's the older I get, and I'm in decent shape. I'm not, I'm in decent shape. I can attest. I've been jogging a good bit. I try to get my legs under me a little bit as I get ready for turkey season, at least to be able to walk. And but the older I get, the more turkeys I kill just setting up, especially if I'm in Florida. But I don't hunt, honestly, disclaimer, I don't hunt Florida much. A few more weekends I'll be in Florida, and then now there's a lot of extenuating circumstances this season with COVID, and last season canceled a lot of trips and a lot of travel. But I usually when I'm on my normal schedule, I'm out of Florida by probably after the first or second weekend. I'm already in Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, New York. I hunted New York 4, 5, 6 years ago. I go everywhere across the United States. I think I've killed birds in 24 states now. I'm trying to get a lifetime super slam, and I love enjoying cooler temps when I'm spring gobbler hunting. That's part of it. Really embrace. But back to your story, yeah, I find shade, and hopefully it's breezy, and just set up in turkey rich environments, areas that I've scouted and know holds birds, and just do a lot of blind calling and kill just as many turkeys as running and gunning, and ended up sweaty with being your legs being shaped and you got swamp butt and everything else. It's just not as fun at all. The older I get, especially, I found other ways of being very, very successful killing a lot of turkeys. But when it allows and the weather's great and the temps are right, I love still running gun and try to strike one and call him up. That's still a huge passion of mine.
Where in upstate New York did you hunt?
Oneonta. I hunted Oneonta.
Oh, no shit. I'm near there. That's where I grew up. I
there with an old I used to be with Quaker Boy years and years ago, about 20 years ago.
Okay.
Yep. Huge. I grew up using Quaker Boy calls. I'm friends with the Kirbys, Ernie Calandrelli. Just they're great people, and that was always the calls I used growing up. And then about 12 years ago, I ended up with Woodhaven. And so at the end of the day, I was with an old Quaker Boy pro staffer. This was probably a dozen years ago, 14 years ago. I hunted Oneonta unsuccessfully. And then I ended up about 5 years ago in Bliss, and Niagara Falls area in Bliss, and killed my first eastern New York turkey in Bliss, in the Bliss area. Bliss area. So, yeah.
Yeah, I grew up Binghamton, New York, which is about 45 minutes or half hour from about an hour or so from Oneonta. But yeah, my sister lives out that way, and my nephew lives in Unadilla, and he's a big turkey hunter as well. But yeah, it's fun. It's funny you mentioned Quaker Boy, because I started turkey hunting in the early 80s, and I got a Lynch foolproof box call, because Lynch was kind of like the main box call that I liked. Yeah. And then there was Bentley and Quaker Boy calls. And I just loved, I had the cassette tapes from Dick Kirby, and I always made the Gobbler of Letchworth Canyon. I would listen to that tape over and over. And I always remember the one thing he said that stuck to me today is that if the turkey is visible to you, then you were visible to the turkey. That mantra right there, I always remember. As soon as that bird comes in sight, your movement's got to be. Absolutely. And I always remember that. Yeah. But yeah, Dick Kirby, I used to love Quaker Boy turkey calls. Those are like my go-to for decades.
Right. And now I've been with Woodhaven for a dozen years, and big family we have going with that group of people. I love them dearly, and we have a wonderful relationship. We're doing very well with our calls, and couldn't be happier, and wish Quaker Boy all the best of luck. Like I said, we're all friends of mine. They've known me. Those guys, I'm 46, and those guys have known me since I was a kid, 10, 12 years old. 30 plus years I've known all them boys. So it's awesome. You establish those relationships.
I'm gonna actually pick up some Woodhaven. I use these calls. There's a guy actually in upstate New York. I can't think of the name because he just went out of business, and he made these great custom calls in Sydney, New York. And I can't remember the name there. Anyways, yeah, he went out of business, but he sent me a ton of his. I bought some, and then he knew I was from upstate, and I'm down here in Texas, and he's actually sent me extra calls, and I still have some. I haven't even taken out of the package yet, but now that he's out, and Quaker Boy really isn't a big player anymore in Turkey, I don't really see their stuff, and I always see Woodhaven, and I've heard really good things about their calls, so I was actually going to try a few this year. Any besides your model, like what mouth calls would you recommend for Woodhaven?
Well, I have 5 of them, so you can get about anything you want to get done or any hand you want to produce with I have a yellow venom, raspy red reactor, black reactor, bladed V, and the new energy. Outside of my 5 models, I love the Ninja Hammer. I love the Ninja V. Trying to think. There's a new pack that just came out that's a call. It's called the Pure Turkey 3-pack, and that had a modified cutter by Steve Stoltz, and it has a hammer T and a hammer tooth. Those all ran very well. If you go to the Woodhaven page, I did a demo of those calls about a week and a half ago. I think like about a week ago today, actually. I think we released that demo video. Those are great calls. I think we're incidentally sold out of those. We did a 500 early release pack of those, and next year we did a soft launch, and those were sold out now. 500 3-packs are gone, and now next year we'll do the hard launch. But love the Ninja series. Like I love the Hyper Hammer, the Reverse Hammer. Those are all there's 8 or 9 different models that you could give a shot. But any of my 5, I mean, I put a lot of hard work and dedication, and they're all unique cuts. They're not your industry standards, other than my new energy call is a V, but it's a lot different than your industry standard, and it has the wingtips clipped off of it, so it gives you the ability to get a little bit better, cleaner front end. But yeah, you can still pound on it and cut real hard, or you can get soft on it. And I design my calls to be as absolutely as versatile as possible. Some calls are good for cutting and hard yelping. Some calls are good for soft stuff. All of my designs, I work diligently on creating a call that will do from soft to hard and anywhere in between, and do it with minimal effort. And they're easy to use for the average turkey caller. You know, a very low percentage of the turkey hunting population takes their call into upper levels. Now, there's some fine hunter callers. I'm not saying that by no means that people don't get really good on mouth calls, but the majority of the turkey hunters are middle of the road. And we at Woodhaven have just strived to build as much turkey with ease of use, just build it into the call, where the average guy just blows air across it, and it's going to create that lively, more realistic nasal rasp of a hen turkey.
So when they make a call that has your name on it, is your process, do you describe to them how you want the call, and then they put some calls together and you test them, or do you have an actual, like, your hands on as well?
Some of both. Sometimes I'll have a hand in it, sometimes I don't, but they're built to my specifications. There are times when I involve myself because we're just busy working on the calls, and they need a little side help. But at the end of the day, they know the side tension, they know the back tension, they know the cuts and the spacing of the reeds, and where the cuts are made, and the depth of the cut, and et cetera.
Cool. So, and did you get hooked up with Woodhaven because you're what, 3-time world champion caller for
I've won
National Wild Turkey Federation?
Three Grand National turkey calling titles, and a bunch of top 5s in the Open. And then I won the owl hooting last year, and then I won the U.S. Open owl hooting, and I've got a 3rd place finish in the U.S. Open. It was up in Harrisburg, PA, about 5 or 6, 7 years ago. But to answer your question, 4-time Grand National titles, three head-to-heads, and 1 owl hooting. And then I've top 5'd in the gobbling, and I've top 5'd in the friction as well.
And so then were you with Woodhaven during those times, or did they give
Absolutely. Every one of those titles have been since my tenure with Woodhaven.
Nice.
So now I won some titles regionally, and not regionally. I won some titles with Quaker Boy way back in the day, here and there across the U.S., but all of my main success has been since the last 12 years, we'll call it. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk some turkeys. And one, I think probably the most frustrating situation to have as a turkey hunter is a bird that gets hung up. You know, he'll sit out there and call. If you move, I mean, I've had times I just move like 100 yards and also this birds come running. And then there's other times he's not moving. And then you can tell when he's got hens, and he'll do that coming in, and he'll get really close, and the next gobble's like way far away. So how would you handle a situation like that?
Gosh, you just named like 4 different scenarios. Where I usually will start right off the bat, the easiest but most difficult task when you get one, you're working him, he's closing, then he puts the brakes on, is just shut up. Hardest thing for any turkey hunter to do, myself included, after 30-something years of hunting them, it's so difficult. It's a disciplinary thing, but just to shut up for 15 minutes or so. That breaks more turkeys probably than anything I do that I'll discuss further when I'll dig a little bit deeper into this. But that's the first thing I'll try to do. If that doesn't work, you got to be careful. That's a very, very tight line you got to walk, because sometimes the bird will become disinterested and walk off because you do get silent. Other times it's like cat and mouse. curiosity killed the cat kind of thing, and he will break and come to you. So you have to walk a very tight line. Don't give it too long, maybe 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes of silent treatment. If that doesn't work, I may get super excited. I raise the level of excitement way up, and he may gobble. And it's not that I do this for 10 minutes. I'll give him a couple of awesome longer series of cutting with some excited yelping, and just what I call scalding him, like you scald your kid, scolding him. You really get after him, and you're mad because he's not coming over there to you. And then I go quiet for a little bit. That's work sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. He just gobbles and stays hung up. From there, I will go into what I call quiet and coy talk, and I'll go somewhat silent, but I'll cluck and purr and whine, soft yelp, scratching the leaves. If I can get away with the movement, I'll scratch in the leaves and try to simulate almost like this hot, sexy hen has just got him all fired up and he's pumped and he's ready to breed. And then all of a sudden it's like a woman giving all the right signals, and then she's just like, whatever. I'm just going to sit here and chit chat with my girlfriends now, or I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to iron now. So you follow what I'm. That's kind of the what I'm trying to convey to that turkey is I'm super interested in him, and then all of a sudden I'm like disinterested in him, but I'm still making turkey sounds. After that, you've already mentioned something else. In the event that I can move, I will reposition on the turkey, and that's all based on whether you have the cover and the ability that to move without being detected. And I've gotten around in front of them. If they do what you said and they start drifting off, I'll go quiet. I'll switch to locators. And hopefully he'll gobble at the locators like a crow call, an owl call, a hawk screamer. And I'll never make a turkey sound. I'll get in front of him, make a wide berth, then sit down, and very often will change the voice of the hen. Like I will be a different turkey. I'll try to sound like a completely different hen that he may have just stumbled on and encountered. Because if he hears that same hen in my mind, he's going, oh gosh, here she is again. And he might get stubborn again. If that doesn't work, I may go back to that original voice that he was very responsive to. But at the end of the day, reposition on him, get in front of him. And then at the end of the day after that, if none of that works, just try to cut him off and go silent and just try to deer hunt him. I hate to say it, cut him off at the pass. I won't say deer hunt him, but try to just get him to walk by you in gun range without saying a word. And that works sometimes. And after that, probably the last tactic I would use is gobbling at him or staging a fight. I'll either gobble at him, trying to challenge him. If that doesn't work, then I may get my wing out and start doing fighting purrs and beating that wing on my arm. You're doing a fighting purr sequence. I carry a wing with me everywhere I go, and that will sometimes draw him into thinking, whoa, what's going on here? Why is there two gobblers now with this hen that I just heard? And that will sometimes seal the deal. So at the end of the day, David, it's a matter of having a very thick book of tricks to throw at him. That's what I think turkey hunters, they get too one-dimensional sometimes, and they don't think outside the box enough. Throw the kitchen sink at him. Don't stick there and just sit to one single tactic. And most guys get locked up on a bird like that, and they just cutting you up and cutting you up and cutting you up and cutting you up, and the bird finally wanders off. And they just don't have enough, insight to go, all right, I got to gobble at him. I got to get quiet. I got to get aggressive. I got to reposition on him. I got to, do one of many things that may or may not end up being successful without just doing that same thing over and over and over again.
How about another scenario, which I experience a lot? I think I just do it.
Oh,
go ahead.
I left one out. You mentioned he's got hens. I'm sorry. I completely forgot. You mentioned one other scenario. He has hens. And sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Hold that thought. It's okay. Hold that thought. When I identify he has hens, I'll give one simple step to starting that conversation, especially if you got those hens talking. Never get aggressive too fast. You hear too many turkey hunters say, they hear a hen yelp to them, and what do they do immediately? They start jumping on top of her and getting after her and getting aggressive at that hen. Well, here's the two scenarios that play out. In my opinion, the boss hen that's leading those hens in that harem is going to be the one that dictates pretty much what happens. That hen will generally have two personality styles. She'll either be very coy and passive, or she will be aggressive. So if you start off too aggressive too quick to that coy passive hen, she's just going to do what? She's going to pull that gobbler and leave. If it happens to be the aggressive hen that gets right back into your jump, then that may work, and you may end up killing him because she comes over looking for confrontation. But never ever start that engagement getting too aggressive too fast, because you don't want to counter produce yourself or be counteractive against what may or may not work. You want to just start with the basics, just light yelping back to her. Just say hello to her. Be very social to her. And then if she steps up that excitement level, then you can. If she's just having a civil conversation, I may even throw some kiki runs in there like a lost Jenny looking for company. And then you're just capitalizing on that passive hen, and you're trying to lead the flock over just to see who's the new girl on the block. But she's being very nice. She's not wanting to engage me and confront me, so I'll wander over just to be sociable. Again, if it's the aggressive hen, then you can step up your aggression. But at the end of the day, never start off too aggressive. Start off being very civil, and that will kill you a lot more birds when you're talking just to the hens. And try to pull the whole flock over.
I've tried kiki. In one time in my whole hunting, it worked. And the hen, I saw them out in the field, and I decided to throw some kikis, and all of a sudden, here comes a hen. I didn't have a shot at the gobblers to his like really thin, like stick pole area, and he was walking through, and it wasn't clear enough. But yeah, the kiki does work. I know that. You know what? I'm guilty of when she starts getting aggressive with me, I'll just go right back at her. And instead of doing, like you said, I've called hens in before, not purposely. They'll start coming in, so I'll start doing some yelping. And I've toned it down, trying to match what they're giving me. Right. But you can hear the gobbler. He'll stay outside, and you hear him strutting, and he's got other hens with him. And then she'll come up close, and then she'll walk off, and the next gobble I'll hear. And I've seen them. They'll have like here in Texas, man.
You'll have like I love hunt Rios. Yeah,
you'll have 5 or 6 long beers, and there'll be like 40 hens, and that's go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I think what you encounter that one hen peels off just because she's curious is that's not the boss hen. That's not the hen leading the flock, and that she just wanted to wander over and maybe find company or just see who the new girl is, and it's not nothing you can control. Honestly, it's just the way that the cards fell. You know, that hen just peeled off to take a look. Hey, how are you? You want to come over? You want to come join us? Whatever. And then at the end of the day, it wasn't the one that's leading the pack. And if you don't get her engaged, it's hard to pull the whole flock over. But what you're talking about is you see very large flocks of turkeys with Rios a lot of times. I get exactly what you're saying. I've seen it many, many times. And it's almost hard to make any sense of all the chaos because there's so many. There's such a wad of turkeys. It's hard. It's hard. And in that situation, what I have found to be very successful, and I've killed a bunch of Rios, is gobbling at them. Gobbling is very effective on Rios and Miriams, I found, when they're in those bigger flocks like that, or even gobbler or jake yelping as well. Don't ever discount a jake yelp or a gobbler yelp. That can be very, very effective too.
I've never heard it. Is it just more raspy or loud, like a rah, 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 rah? How's a jake yelp?
A deeper honking, go, 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 go.
Okay.
In slower rhythm, go, 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 go. In a more broken rhythm where a hen is go, 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 go. But it's usually distinctly different. Now I have had jakes that sounded like hens, and I've had hens that sounded like jakes. You know, you don't want to ever speak in extremes with turkeys because they'll always prove you wrong. But the general rule of thumb is what I just expressed and what I just explained to you about how the rhythm is a little slower and it's a lot deeper, and that usually it'll give that gobbler that you're trying to gobble yelp to or jake yelp to that it's not a hen. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Here's another scenario I encounter every year, and so I like, because I told you I bow hunt. I have a permanent blind, not permanent. I can take it down, but I keep it in one spot, and then the rest of the time I'm mobile. I carry a netting, and I'll go and conceal myself in the bush and put the netting up and have decoy. But the spot where I have my permanent stand is near where they roost, and every year I think I just like going there because I know they're going to be there. But every year, without fail, I'll hear several gobblers going off, and then all of a sudden they start hearing them in the trees, and I know game over as soon as they fly down. And I actually hunt. If you can see where I hunt, it's pretty hilarious. I hunt behind houses in the neighborhood, and everyone feeds them here. They have feeders, so these birds every morning. Literally, they roost. If you could see, they literally roost in right above people's houses. It's I'm so. Anyways, they'll fly down and they'll be in all these yards, and they'll cross the road and they'll head off away from me. So I've gotten most of my birds here in Texas in the afternoons when they break up. They're more free. And like I said, I think I just enjoy the early morning. But say you encounter a situation like that where you're hearing the birds gobbling, and also you hear that hen. And there's more than one. What is it? What's the best
about in the roost?
Yeah.
They're on the roost still.
Yeah.
The best thing I can tell you to do when I encounter that situation is to just try to sound like other hens as well. And you're almost trying to do with them on the roost what I was explaining on the ground. You're just trying to have them want to maybe come investigate who the newcomer is, because in my opinion, these flocks are very tight knit and they pretty much know each other and they're each other's voices. So when they hear a different hen voice, I mean, their whole world is centered around vocalizations. That's how they communicate outside of spitting and drumming, which is still a sound. And the visual of a gobbler strutting from a distance, a hen sees a strutting, displaying calm. Everything they do, like a deer uses scent, turkeys use vocalization. So they know those different voices. So all I'm trying to do is create a newcomer on the block. Again, trying not to be overly challenging to start with and trying to just have them come investigate and maybe come see who the new girl is. Outside of that, man, that is a hard one to tackle, with any success, unless the gobblers have just bred the hens and stay with them after they fly down, because they may have already bred the hens and they may stick around with them for a minute or two, and then they may peel off because they're looking for a breedable hen that's still hot, if you will, still ready to breed. Just stay with them. If none of that works, just try to stay with those turkeys. And then at some point he may peel off. He may breed that last one hen out of those 10 that is still in heat, if you will. And then once he's bred her, he may peel off her and go find who this new voice is, this new girl is on the block. That's about the only two things I can say about birds like that are just hemmed up really bad in that type of situation.
Do you use decoys?
I do not. I had a brief run in the 90s using decoys when Featherflex came out with those foam body decoys, if you remember, back in the 90s. And I had some weird experiences, and most of them all bad, where the bird would come in and hang up and look at the decoy and do this and hang up and then tuck his wings and walk off. I did have one successful hunt on Fort Jackson in South Carolina when I was in the Army, because I had got reports of a guy watching a gobbler chase off like 4 jakes out of a particular field that he was dominant over, if you will. And I said, well, I don't use deeks, but I bet you if I set up in here and put a jake decoy out there and do some jake yelps or some half gobbles or something, that may be what seals the deal. And actually that particular bird died because of a jake decoy. This was 25 years ago. But at the end of the day, I had a brief run with him, a season or so, and I had too many bad experiences. And I'd already learned to kill turkeys successfully and consistently without using decoys growing up from like 10 or 11 years old. You started even before me, but maybe a few years after you, I started. And I learned how to call them in and use setup and use vocalizations. And I got really quickly, I improved and got pretty dang good on a turkey call really quick, because I quickly learned hunting public land. The more you sounded like a hen, the more turkeys you killed. So I learned how to use terrain and setup to where that gobbler hears the hen, but for him to be able to lay eyes on that hen or get close enough to the hen to see the hen, he's in gun range, and then the game's over. Then that consists of setting up in places that give you good visibility now, but yet still gives you enough cover where a hen could be behind a bush or bushes or cover, and he hears her, but he can't see her. If you get into some big, giant open hardwoods or even in Texas, in the prairies of Texas, where they can see you from a mile away, all you can do is try to get into some covered area where he's looking, but, well, I hear her, but she should be there, but I don't know if I can quite see her. And I don't know, this is me thinking like a turkey. This is me, because I've had so much success doing it. I think I won't say it's the gospel, but I think a lot of it remains true, that their mind rationalizes when they should or shouldn't see a hen standing there yelping. You obviously don't want to sit on one tree out in the field with nothing around you at all, and he hears these hen calls and he's looking going, where's the hen at? This doesn't even make sense. I should see a hen. We know their eyesight is the best part of their senses. Their eyesight first, and then their hearing. So at the end of the day, I learned to kill them without decoys, and then that's the long dissertation of why I really don't use them at all hardly anymore. And I just use setup and really good calling and communicating with the birds to try to trick them into doing something they shouldn't do.
Yeah, I use, because I bow hunt, it helps me to distract them. Especially I use the Avian X Jake, and that thing, when, what's funny is I can't say with a fact, but in the early season, for me, it's money. If a gobbler sees that, I mean, they come in all red, swole, they get up, they start kicking the shit out of it. And then suddenly sometime during the middle of the season, it almost deters them from coming in. Like I had a bird last year. I actually had a real hen right off to my left. She was just sitting there calling, and I had my Jake out in front of me. And then this long beard came from my right, and I was watching him. I have it on film. And he came strutting, and he literally came up to the decoy, did a 90-degree right turn, went way down, out of range, made a left, and went up to the hen, got with her, and was gone. I mean, he literally saw that Jake decoy. He was within feet and just 90-degreed and walked away. And then one year I had, so I had my Jake decoy out in front of me. I had my blind, and I had a gobble. I could see him. He was on the other side of the cedars. And there's no way he did not have that decoy in sight. Where he was visually, I know he could see it. And he sat there for, I'm going to say half hour at least. I just watched him strut, and he would not. I mean, I tried soft calling, anything, and he would not budge, and he finally just walked away. So it's, I've had good success with my decoys. And then other times it like, I know they can see it. I've seen them. They'll be right there and they won't come in. Like, I don't know if it's the Jake decoy. Maybe it's I don't know.
I've got two theories on that. One is when the populations are good in your neck of the woods in Texas, when there's often very big groups of jakes, and I've seen big groups of jakes attack and run off a gobbler. So maybe he had a bad run-in with a gaggle of jakes, big flock of jakes, and ran him off. Two, which goes back to my experimentation with decoys back in the early 90s, was simply the fact that the motionlessness, that fact that turkey is just statuesque and not moving, I think deters them. They're used to a bird. Turkeys are almost always moving. Now, we've had the Mexican standoffs, if you will, before, where the gobbler just standing there looking. But at the end of the day, they're almost always moving and feeding, and they're very seldom just stand still for 20 minutes. So I think the motionlessness, I think, is what sometimes deters them. And or maybe you hunted a bird that's seen it. Maybe his buddy got shot off of a decoy, and he goes, "I'm not going." I played that game before. I've seen it before. That turkey stood motionless for 20 minutes. We walked up there, and Leroy got shot. So there's a couple theories that I have that may hold true to why they may or may not. I mean, I don't know if it's 100% accurate, but it's theories. I'm always theorizing with turkeys, because really, if you do anything else other than theorize, you're doing yourself an injustice, because they do what they're not supposed to do sometimes. Sometimes they do exactly what they're supposed to do. And I would probably say at 70, they do what they're not supposed to do, and 30% they do just come right into a call and you shoot them. So
true.
I think that leaves you with enough data to say, I don't really know what they're going to do or how they're going to do it, but I have my ideas and my theories, and sometimes they work, and sometimes those theories don't work. But at the end of the day, going back to what I said earlier, have that big thick book of tricks to be able to try different things and be three-dimensional, and that's sometimes what seals the deal, as opposed to just leaning on one particular tactic.
Here's one of the last scenario I'll talk about, which is also very common, is you get up early in the morning, you get out there, and it's silent. And they're there. For a fact they're there. And I've always kind of been a believer in, if I call them, they'll come. And that's sometimes I've done that. I just start calling. I'll call for 30 seconds straight, rest a little bit, and then just start calling again. And then I've found, it's a hit or miss if it's going to work. But when it does work, and it's usually more in the afternoons, I may get one gobble, and then it's complete silence. And the next thing I hear from him is, and I know he's close and he's coming in, and he just made that one gobble and he's on his way. And that's when he'll see my decoy and come in. So what are your tactics for silence? Just, they're there, and there's first thing in the morning, there's nothing. You expect to hear gobbles, and it's dead silent.
Right. Well, what's ironic about that is generally Rios and Miriams are definitely going to gobble. And that's why I love hunting Western and, mountain birds up in the Pacific Northwest and central North, South Dakota, Nebraska with Merriam's. I love hunting those birds because generally they do gobble. I mean, more times than not. You come down in the South and the East and hunt Osceolas and Easterns, and it's way too frequent that they just don't say a word and they're there. So to answer your question, there's two tactics, and one of them is exactly what you just expressed. I will set up because I know they're there. I'll scratch in the leaves. I'll cluck and purr. I'll do different types of feeding sequences, maybe a little more excited sequences, go quiet for a while. Then I'll start picking up maybe in 15 minutes and start calling again. And that's two of the things that I use. Outside of that is you said just blind calling, and then you can go run and gun. You can just run and gun and try to find that needle in a haystack bird that's hot, and you might stumble upon that one bird that is ready to breed, and that he's hot, and he will come to a call. And depending on the temperature and the weather conditions, that's what dictates. Like we talked about it being really hot, I may find shade and just set up. Or if it's a place I know that's turkey rich, and I think I just get that overall good feeling that there's plenty of birds that we might strike one, and the temperatures are good, and you can do it and not need oxygen and a bath after an hour, then I will get after those birds and try to do some running and gunning. But that's exactly what I would do in that same situation.
Speaking of running and gunning, because you just got me thinking of another scenario is where you are running and gunning. Like there's times where I'll be at the spot calling and I'll start walking. I'll make a big loop and come back to where I am and nothing. And then I will literally pack up and start leaving, and I'll get maybe quarter mile, half mile or more from where I'm at. And all of a sudden I'll start hearing a gobble down there. Now, have you had that happen where you've called, and then you get up and leave and you start walk away, and you may be at your truck or something, and all of a sudden the bird's gobbling? Like, where the hell were you like earlier?
Right. And that's a perfect example of why I love to set up and blind call. I think what happens inevitably is a bird hears you from much, much further than you can hear him, as we well know.
Yes.
I think sometimes the bird answers you. You don't even hear him answer you. So the whole time he may be coming into you and you don't know it. But if you don't sit there long enough, and invariably he shows up to where you were, you know what I mean? And then he's sitting there right where he had heard those calls. So that's why I love to just set up and blind call anymore. I think you're putting that sound out, and you're essentially, this is the best way I can put it, is that the turkey's running and gunning for you. You're sitting there putting sound out, and you know how good they can hear, and you're putting sound out. The birds are always moving, feeding, almost always they're moving. They're on the move somewhere, going somewhere. And with you being stationary, it sounds like it might handcuff you, but it really doesn't, because eventually if you're in a place that's holding birds, something's going to come into earshot of you. And as he comes into earshot of you and he continues to hear you call and continues to hear those sounds, he finally gets fired up. He gets in the mood, if you will. And then he breaks, he starts gobbling, you get him wound up. And then he comes in looking for the hen that he's been hearing for 20 minutes. Unbeknownst to you, you never even knew he was there because he was so far away listening to you coming to you. If you get up and move, and that's like when you run a gun, you're either finding that super hot bird within earshot of you and you happen to strike him and you set up and you kill him, or birds have heard you all over the place and they may have answered, you never even heard them. You never knew they were there. Or they were just quiet and didn't gobble because you just called one time and then you walked off and went out of earshot of them. So that's why I found that being patient and good calling and blind calling has been almost more successful than that needle in a haystack bird when you're running a gun and trying to find that hot one.
What do you suggest?
Changing the mood of the bird.
What do you suggest for guys who overcall? Because there's guys when they hear that gobble and also they'll get so excited and then they overcall.
Yeah. It's just discipline, man. I don't know how to say, what do you say to the guy that does that? Just try your best to refrain. As much as we love to hear that gobble, try to refrain from making him gobble over and over and over and over again. Because at the end of the day, all you're doing is putting yourself at a disadvantage, because many, many times if he hears them too much, they get stubborn. Again, this is me thinking how turkeys think. I try to think how they rationalize, if they can rationalize. But at the end of the day, he knows he does his business. He gobbles, he struts, he spits, he drums, and hens come to him. I mean, now there are times when a bird's super hot, he will go to hens even in the wild. They'll go to hens. Don't think that they won't. Now that does happen. But at the end of the day, they're used to the hens just coming to them. So if you call too much, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage, because more times than not, they're going to hang up, in my opinion. Just call enough to keep him coming to you. Keep him coming to you. Don't call just to hear him gobble. Call, wait 5 minutes. Does he gobble on his own? Maybe he does, or does he go quiet? If he goes quiet, well, then give him another little set of yelps. Is he closing the distance? Good. Give him a few more minutes. Give him a set of yelps. More times than not, people just call just to hear him gobble, and they get caught up in that so much. We've all been guilty of it, and you just want to hear that gobble, and you're excited. But it's just about being disciplined. You have to discipline yourself to just try to refrain and only call enough to keep him moving to your location. Now, if just that basic stuff isn't enough, then you bring that game up. Then you start getting more aggressive. And then that's very often will get scolding him. Like I said, that'll get him broke and coming to you. Other times you have to go the other direction, like I explained earlier, and get quieter, softer, feeding, and just kind of become disinterested. So it's just about feeling how much he needs to keep him coming, keep him moving forward. And the basics are always best to start with, and then only go to all this advanced stuff if you have to, because not 9 out of 10 times, many times when I'm killing turkeys, all I do is do some clucking and yelping. But if I feel like he's just he's only answering me once every 3 times I call with that basic stuff, that's what I'm going to get excited and try to get him fired up, and I'm going to start delivering a little bit of aggressiveness to him. And a lot of times that'll break them, get them, change their mood. You're changing their mood almost. It's like you're capitalizing and exploiting his mood, and you're trying to use vocalizations to tell him that he needs to be more excited than he is.
Aren't you amazed at how when everything's coming together and you're calling just enough, not over calling, and how they can find you with those little calls they do, and they're far away and they know exactly where you are. They come in and you've only called once or twice and they've been way off, and next gobble you hear is closer, and then all of a sudden you see them, it's like they just know exactly where you are.
Well, I talked to a biologist one time, and I'm not sure if this is correct, so I'm not saying I know all the anatomy and the biology of a wild turkey, but their ears are actually offset. They have one ear that's slightly higher than the other ear. Now, I can honestly tell you, I've never looked at it, and I don't know if it's something so minute you wouldn't see with the naked eye. But what that does is it allows them to triangulate and pinpoint things even better than like a human hearing or a deer's hearing or many other wild animals' hearing. But that's what I was told by a biologist one time, is how they have the uncanny ability, even in high winds or whatever, they can still walk right to where you're setting and hopefully be in gun range to make a shot. But yeah, that is uncanny.
All right. Well, listen, Scott, thank you for coming on, because you're getting me amped up for the season, and you provide some great tips. And here's another thing I learned. I've spoken to you and my friend James, and you're both excellent callers as well as successful turkey hunters, and you both carry a wing. James, when he was on my podcast, did the same thing with you, bust out the wing, and exact same thing. Gobbler's fighting, beating his wing on his arm. Yep, he's the exact same. So that's something I'm going to have to add to my arsenal. But 2 guys, successful turkey hunters, doing the same thing. So they're very successful. They call, they know what they're doing, and so they must be doing something right. So yeah, I'm going to add the wing to my toolbox. But hey, listen, thank you again for coming on. You provide some great tips for myself, and I'm sure other people will appreciate it. Good luck this year. Yeah, have a good time with your son. I hope you guys have more hunts together. And hey, man, thanks again. Appreciate it. Hey, give out your social media so when people know, websites, all that stuff.
So my show called Hunt Quest is on YouTube. It's Hunt Quest with Scott Ellis. Matter of fact, I don't know when this will air, this podcast, but I have a new show dropping tonight. But I'm trying to keep content as fresh as I can. I'm not the guy that gets to go out and hunt every day of the season and chase turkeys. I wish I could, but I have to work a job and sprinkle in a little vacation with a weekend to make it a long weekend. That's how I have to do what I do. But Hunt Quest with Scott Ellis on YouTube. You can find me on Facebook, Hunt Quest with Scott Ellis. I've got a business/fan page there. Instagram, Scott_C_Ellis. And also my website, Scott Ellis Turkey, ScottEllisHunting.com. And ScottEllisHunting.com has Hunt Quest apparel. It has turkey tips. It has my 2 instructional mouth call DVDs called Mouth Call Magic 1 and 2. And those are DVDs that take a very comprehensive look at different styles of hen yelping, all the different sounds a turkey makes, and how to recreate them. And it's on a mouth call. Those are on ScottEllisHunting.com. And that pretty much covers the social media parts of it. So I appreciate you having me on and getting to share a little bit of what I've learned over the years that's made me successful and consistent killing these crazy birds. And I wish you guys the best, yourself, the best of luck this season.
Yeah, and I'll be sure to get this out sooner because spring season's coming up. And Lake Pickle, he was on there also, so I want to get you guys kind of near each other so you guys can provide some good tips. But yeah, thanks again, Scott. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me. Take care, Dave.
Have a good day. See ya. Bye.